Hey everybody, Norm over here, and I have my buddy Denny Tedesco.
Good to see you.
And Denny is an old friend, and his dad was an old buddy of mine, and one of the great characters in LA music,
Yeah.
Tommy Tedesco. And Tommy was, for many years, may still be, the most recorded guitar player of all time.
Well, he worked a lot, let's just say that.
Yep. And he was a character we always loved when Tommy would come in, and he's legendary of all kinds of crazy things. I have a card game that I played with him one time because I had a guitar. He needed something quick, and he said, "What do you want for that?" And I told him the price, and he said, "I'll play you gin, double or nothing." And I was going to say, "No, I don't want to play gin with you, Tom, because you play all the time. You're probably really good." But I figured it would be a good story to tell, so I played with him and I beat him, as cards do. I was on a great run that day and I beat him, and he paid me, and it was a good story. But Denny is a movie producer, and he has produced the Wrecking Crew movie, which is one of my favorite documentaries. Really a fantastic movie about the legendary musicians that played behind so many of the great artists. And now you have a new one called The Immediate Family.
Yeah, which a bunch of your friends. It's Waddy Wachtel. It's the story of Waddy Wachtel, Leland Sklar, Danny Kochmar, Russ Kunkel, and Steve Fistel. They all have a band together called Immediate Family. And it's kind of a spin-off of the Wrecking Crew in a weird way.
Well, they were kind of the new regime of the Wrecking Crew in a way, because as these younger artists started coming around, like at the time it was James Taylor and Linda Ronstadt and Jackson Browne and all those people. These were the guys that backed them up.
Yeah. And it's like a handoff in a weird way. There's a great thing at the end of the Wrecking Crew. I asked Lou Adler, the producer of Tapestry, I said, "Did you make a conscious decision of changing your sound by getting new musicians for that album?" He goes, "No, not at all." He goes, "Carole King brought her friends in. She brought in Cooch, and which is Danny Kochmar, and James Taylor." And I went, "Oh, that's a total, handoff to the next generation."
Well, and for so many years, they were the guys doing, again, Linda Ronstadt, James Taylor, Jackson Browne, on and on.
Warren Zevon, they just kept going.
Yeah, and these guys all played also with a lot of other people. Leland Sklar, one of the greatest bass players of all time, and Russ Kunkel. They played, I know Lee played with so many people. He was in James Taylor's band, and Waddy Wachtel was with Keith Richards' band when Keith did his solo project and all that. So this movie is great because it's got all the stories of all those guys back in the day, and it's a real chronicle of LA music history.
Yeah, all these stories they're like a bubble, meaning it's a certain time, certain place, and you could kind of taste it, because of the sensory of those sounds, the music. You kind of know where you are when you're hearing that song. Even if you're not in LA, you know where you were when that song came out. It's a bookmark in your life.
Well, music does that for me. It takes me to familiar places from back in the day and provides a great memory and all that.
Yeah.
But those guys were the insurance players. They were the guys.
That's a really good, I never heard that term, but you're right.
Well, you knew when you hired those guys, they were going to get the sound right.
Yeah.
Because, you would hire a drummer, and the guy could be sitting there for 4 hours going boom on the tom-tom before they got the sound. And these guys had it down because they went from session to session. So they knew exactly what to do, how to get their sound.
That's true.
And you knew when you hired these guys what you were going to get. You were going to get a finished product, and you were going to get the hooks and all the right stuff for the tunes.
Yeah, and the difference between the two generations is these guys got to spend more time with the artists in the recording, as then went on the road.
Right.
And they spent more time creating, being able to be part of that creation.
Well, your dad with the original Wrecking Crew, those guys were just in the car going from studio to studio
3
to
hours,
studio.
yeah.
They do a 3-hour session, they were on to the next
Yeah,
one.
and there was
And-
no messing around. You got in and got out. You had to get three songs in 3 hours.
And if you haven't seen The Wrecking Crew, that's one of my favorite of all movies. I've
Thank you.
probably seen it a dozen times.
Yes,
And
thank you.
it's everything from the Beach Boys to Nancy Sinatra to just on and on.
Janet Dean, Mamas and Papas, Fifth Dimension. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, in those days, it sounds derogatory when I say it, but it's not. It was a factory.
Yeah, even Sam Cooke.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
R&B. They went from R&B to big band to
Yeah.
pop to everything.
Yeah.
These guys just had it down. And Hal Blaine, the drummer, who was one of the most recorded drummers of
Yeah.
all time. So you really need to see both these movies. It's kind of almost like a part one and part two of the LA music scene.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the film Immediate Family is coming out on the 12th around the country in theaters.
Right?
And
You said what group of theaters? Or-
it's well, around the country, it's everywhere. You know, it's like 75 theaters for 1 day, 2 days only, and then it goes to video on demand, which is going to be, you know, Apple, Amazon, DirecTV, anything that does rentals. So that'll be the time. And it's, you know, I'm proud of the movie because it's done really well. The guys are amazing.
You guys have won a lot of awards.
Yeah, we
and all.
we did a lot of awards, like 17 awards, which is great. You know, but it says a lot about those guys.
Right. Well, it's an interesting story,
Yeah.
and you've heard their music
Yeah,
a
yeah.
million times.
Yeah.
And by the way, we just finished our documentary.
That's
It's
right.
not out yet. We're now just starting to shop it, and we have a lot of really great players in our
Can't
documentary
imagine
too.
who's in there.
And it's really good. We have, you know, some of the last interviews with Taylor Hawkins,
Oh, wow.
with Robbie Robertson.
Yeah, yeah.
He was ill, and when he knew what we were doing, he came in and said,
yeah,
"For
nice.
you, I'll do it." And I mean, you know, everybody from Vince Gill to
Yeah.
Richie Sambora, Joe Bonamassa,
Wow.
Lenny Kravitz, Melissa Etheridge.
Everybody.
Joe Bonamassa is very prevalent in it, and it's a good story, a small business story. We've been kind of behind the
I
scenes.
had a question for you. When you started, when did you start your first store, your store?
Well, I started my store in '75.
That was the one on Lindley.
It was on Tampa and Van Owen.
Oh, Tampa. Why did I think Lindley? Was it on Lindley?
No, but
Oh, that's
this
right. It
general
was,
area.
no, but that's what it was. It was that's north south side. Okay, and then, I mean, you went through all those session players that you knew of the time.
Well, you know, when we first started, you know, I had previously, before I opened the store, I dealt with George Harrison, and he turned me on to a lot of people. But when we opened our first store, which was a 500 square foot store,
Yeah.
our first major customer was James Taylor. A lot
no,
of
I
people
didn't
don't
know
really,
that.
and the funny part is, I was out buying guitars, and my buddy Scott Borden, who was managing the store, was in there, and he made the deal. And he was James Taylor's biggest fan.
Yeah.
So we opened the store. A few days later, James Taylor comes walking in, and my buddy Scott, you know, just kind of
What year?
lost
This
it.
is 75.
Yep.
Wow.
And and I wasn't even there for that. So, but just a piece of trivia, he was our first major customer when we opened the store. And again, so all these guys, these stories, being in LA since the mid '70s, you know, there's just so much history, also between supplying instruments to films and all kinds of stuff.
yeah.
So, you know, we're kind of tied together,
absolutely.
your thing and my thing. So I want you to go check out The Immediate Family, December 12th in the theaters, and then be looking for it. The Immediate Family, again, is the more modern version of The Wrecking Crew. And you need to see the Wrecking Crew movie if you haven't seen it. It's a fabulous movie, and you did a great job.
Thanks,
and,
man.
Thank you again for
I
coming
look forward
in.
to
and-
seeing yours.
all right, well,
Thank you.
I appreciate it, and I hope we're now in the movie business.
We are, yeah.
the great Denny Tedesco.
Storm.
You know, you're 2 for 2 now, 2 big hits.
I hope so. Boy, being next to Norm.
Please. The Immediate Family, The Wrecking Crew.
Cheers.
Denny Tedesco.
In the early 70s, you couldn't pick up an album and look at the liner notes without seeing these guys' names.
I would buy records just because they were on it.
The creative input of these session guys cannot be overstated. It can't be overstated.
Russ Kunkel. Danny Korchmar.
And it's too late, baby, now it's too late.
Lee Sklar. Waddy.
And the days go by like strands in the wind, in the web that is not.
They were just musicians we knew, and they gradually became legendary session musicians.
My main goal was to not get fired.
Tapestry, the whole thing was done in 3 weeks.
3 songs in one day, and we didn't piece together the best.
No,
like
it wasn't
we do.
overdubbed.
Look, we were all in our 20s. No, there was no sleeping.
Each album became like a, what's the next thing they're gonna do?
Not only did they give birth to this music, they're as much the author of these songs as the artist they did it with.
Ego goes out the window.
Well, I'm not sure that's true. I have a huge ego.
Well,
I could get hipper, younger people.
In this hotel.
Yeah. But these are the people that play it best.
All I can express is admiration for these guys.
4 truly great players, all of them masters of their instrument.
In hindsight, I was just happy to be there.
I've got a band full of brothers that love me. I'm proud of all of it.